All right, so today we're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, a little off the beaten path.
We got a request from a listener to do a deep dive on this book called How to Hide Anything by Michael Connor.
Right. Not our usual kind of source material.
Definitely not. But we figured, hey, why not? Let's see what kind of interesting stuff we can uncover.
Exactly. It's all about exploring new perspectives.
For
Right?
sure. So for our listeners who haven't seen this book, it's essentially a practical guide to creating hidden spaces and hiding things.
Yeah, it covers a pretty wide range of techniques from simple stuff you can do at home to more elaborate constructions.
Right. And the reasons the book gives for needing this knowledge are pretty interesting too.
Yeah, it talks about things like increasing government restrictions.
Rising burglaries,
Mm.
the threat of terrorism, even the potential for societal collapse.
And of course, that basic human desire for privacy and security.
Exactly.
Mm.
But what we're really going to focus on today is how the actual methods the book describes for hiding things and even people.
Right. We're going to dive into the nuts and bolts of concealment.
So the book starts off with what it calls home base hides, which are basically hiding places you can create within your own home.
Makes sense to start there, right? It's the most familiar environment for most people.
Yeah. So when it comes to hiding things in your home, the book suggests starting with furniture.
Furniture. Interesting. You wouldn't think that would be the first place to look.
Right. You might think of like heavy safes or something.
Yeah.
But apparently modern mass-produced furniture is actually ideal for quick concealment.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. Like your average chair or sofa,
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to take apart,
I
right?
guess so.
Yeah. So you can unscrew it, create little pockets in the foam padding, hide your stuff, and then just staple or snap it back together.
Huh. It's kind of brilliant in its simplicity.
Yeah. It plays on the fact that these items are often seen as disposable or not worth examining too closely.
So it's like hiding in plain sight almost.
Exactly. Now, for older, more solid pieces of furniture, the book takes a different approach.
Like antique wooden furniture.
Yeah, like those ladder-back chairs or gate leg tables that are held together with glue.
Okay.
The book actually suggests drilling into the legs or other structural parts to create hidden compartments.
Wow. That's getting a bit more involved.
Yeah, and to make sure it looks untouched afterwards, the book even mentions using a rubber hammer for something called panel beating, which is basically gently shaping the wood to avoid any obvious signs of tampering.
So you're essentially making the hiding place invisible.
Exactly. Now, if you're not really into DIY or drilling, another surprisingly simple option the book mentions is using your standard hi-fi speaker.
A speaker? How would you hide something in there?
Well, they're designed to be opened up so you can access the components, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So that's already a ready-made hiding spot. You just have
Yeah.
to be careful not to damage any of the wiring.
Makes sense. So you're basically taking advantage of existing access points.
Exactly. And speaking of access points, the book also talks about using electrical fixtures.
Like light switches and outlets.
Yep, you can unscrew those, and there's usually some space inside the wall box where you can stash small items.
Huh. Never thought of that. But wouldn't that be dangerous? What about electrical shocks?
Yeah, the book definitely warns about that, especially if you're hiding metal objects.
Right, because of the risk of short circuits.
Exactly. So you got to be super careful.
Okay, good to know.
And the book takes it a step further with electrical items. It actually describes how to modify electric plugs to create tiny hidden compartments.
Modify plugs. How do you do that?
Basically, you remove the internal parts, the guts of the plug,
Okay.
and then you shorten the pins to make some extra space inside.
Wow, that's pretty ingenious. But I imagine that could be even more dangerous than messing with light switches.
For sure.
Mm.
The book specifically mentions being mindful of the main fuse, because if you overload the circuit, you could blow the fuse.
Right. Makes sense. So you got to know what you're doing.
Definitely. All right, moving on from electrical stuff, the
Yeah.
book then delves into drawers and cupboards.
Ah, the classic false bottom.
Exactly. But what's interesting here is that the book advises against being too greedy with your hiding space.
What do you mean?
Well, instead of creating one big false bottom that takes up most of the drawer, the book suggests making smaller, narrower hides
Why is that?
because they're less likely to be noticed. If someone's just casually looking through your drawers, they're less likely to spot a small hidden compartment.
That's clever. It's all about subtlety.
Exactly. And the book recommends using Velcro or magnets to secure the false bottom so you can easily access it.
Good idea. So it's not like you need special tools or anything to open it.
Nope.
Well-
And for refrigerators, the book has this funny little trick.
Oh, what's that?
You could use a metallic strip or plate underneath the false bottom in one of the compartments. and then use magnets to lift it out.
So it's like a secret compartment disguised as a fridge shelf?
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty sneaky.
I like it. Okay, so we've covered furniture, electrical fixtures, drawers, and cupboards. What else is there?
Well, another classic hiding place that the book talks about is hollowed out books.
Ah, yeah, I've heard of that. But isn't it kind of obvious? I mean, wouldn't you be able to tell if a book was hollow just by looking at it?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
The book gives some specific instructions on how to do it properly.
Like what?
First, you want to pick a good-sized book, not a paperback or anything too thin.
Okay.
And then you remove pages from the middle third of the book, leaving a border at the beginning and end,
Why do you leave a border?
to maintain the illusion of a complete book. Yeah, so it still looks like a normal book from the outside.
Oh, I see. And you don't hollow it out all the way to the edges, right?
You want to leave a bit of thickness so it feels substantial when you hold it.
Clever.
Yeah.
So it's all about making it look and feel as realistic as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, another seemingly innocent household item that the book mentions is curtain rods.
Curtain rods. Really?
Yeah, specifically metal curtain rods with removable end pieces.
Okay.
You can drill out the rod to create a hidden space along its length.
Wow, that's pretty sneaky.
And then you just use a plug made of plastic or wood to seal the cavity.
And you can paint the plug to match the color of the rod so it's completely invisible.
Exactly. All right, moving on to walls. The book offers a couple of interesting ideas.
Walls? What can you do with walls?
Well, for a relatively simple hide, you can cut a trench in the sheetrock or plasterboard between the studs.
The studs being the vertical supports in the wall.
Right. Then you reattach the removed section using clips or Velcro pads and cover it up with wallpaper or a thin layer of plaster.
So it's like a secret compartment built into the wall itself.
Exactly. And for something even easier in the kitchen, you can use the kickboards.
The kickboards?
Yeah, those panels at the base of the kitchen units.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
They're designed to be removable so you can access the space behind them.
Never thought of that as a hiding place.
It's a pretty good spot, especially if you need to stash something quickly.
True. Speaking of kitchens, the book also mentions a rather unusual hiding place.
Oh, what's that?
Hiding jewelry in a pan of cooled fat or shortening.
Ew, that's kind of gross.
Yeah, but the book's point is that no one's going to want to dig through that to find something.
That's true.
Yeah.
I guess desperation can lead to some creative solutions.
For sure. The book also suggests using frozen food containers in the freezer or even messy, smelly food on the stove like a stew as a way to deter prying eyes.
Again, it's all about making the hiding place unappealing.
Right. No one wants to go rooting through a pot of cold stew.
Okay, so we've covered some pretty interesting hiding places in the kitchen. What about other parts of the house?
Well, the book also mentions doors and staircases.
Doors and staircases. How do you hide things in those?
Well, if you have hollow internal doors, you can cut a cavity into the top side or bottom and then create a lid that's secured with pins or magnets.
So it's like a secret compartment within the door itself.
Exactly. And for staircases, you can utilize the space underneath them, which is often just empty space backed with plasterboard.
Okay, how do you access that space?
You can either remove a section of the plasterboard and use magnets and color-matched plasterboard to conceal it, or you can create a hinged access panel.
So you can make it look like part of the staircase.
Exactly. Now, moving outside the book gets even more creative.
Oh, like what?
Well, one idea is to bury a plastic container at the bottom of your compost heap.
A compost heap. Who would ever think to look there?
Exactly. The book even suggests using 2 compost bins side by side to further deter investigation.
That's pretty sneaky. Okay, what else?
Well, for the truly adventurous, the book mentions starting an insect farm or keeping a tank with a pet like a piranha or a jellyfish and then hiding things within their enclosures.
Wow, that's definitely thinking outside the box.
It's the ultimate look but don't touch security system.
For sure. And back inside the book suggests using vents and floors.
Vents and floors, how so?
Well, for vents, you can remove the covers or grills and place items inside, securing them with tape or adhesive.
And for floors?
You can carefully lift a section of the flooring, preferably near an edge and under a piece of furniture.
To access the space underneath.
Exactly. And then you can use thick carpets to help disguise the fact that the flooring has been tampered with.
So it's all about being discreet.
Yep. And for those with an attic, the book points out that thick fiberglass insulation can be a surprisingly effective deterrent.
Why is that?
Because it's easily disturbed, itchy, and generally unpleasant to handle, so people are less likely to search through it thoroughly.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered a lot of the more accessible hiding places. Now, what about when you need something a bit more elaborate?
Well, that's where the book really gets interesting. It moves on to a section called Elaborate Hiding Places.
Oh, this sounds intriguing.
It is? So one of the first ideas is to add dummy pipework to your home,
Dummy pipe work? What do you mean?
like installing fake pipes made from plastic tubing in your bathroom or other areas.
And what's the purpose of that?
Well, it creates these surprisingly large and inconspicuous spaces where you can hide larger items.
Ah, I see. It's like blending in with the existing plumbing.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
because it's fake pipework, it doesn't arouse any suspicion.
Clever. Okay, what are
No,
the
another idea is to utilize wall cavities.
wall cavities?
Yeah, apparently a lot of modern buildings have a gap between the inner and outer walls.
Oh, right, like in those houses with breeze block construction.
Exactly. And the book suggests creating a concealed door to access this space.
Wow, that's a pretty major undertaking.
Yeah, it definitely requires more effort and some construction skills.
But would give you a significant amount of hidden storage.
For sure. Now, the book also talks about modifying everyday garden tools.
Garden tools, like what kind?
Things like spades, forks, rakes, even wheelbarrows,
And how do you modify those?
by drilling out the metal handles to create hidden compartments.
Huh. It's amazing how many everyday objects can be adapted for concealment.
Right. It's all about thinking outside the box.
Okay, what about appliances? Can you hide things in those?
Apparently so. The book mentions making elements of space heaters hollow.
Interesting. And what about larger appliances?
Well, this one's pretty remarkable. The book actually describes how to use hot water tanks or water heaters.
How on earth do you hide something in a water heater?
You can either remove the top half or gain access through the thermostat fittings.
Wow, that's pretty hardcore.
It is, and it provides a surprising amount of space for concealment.
True. Okay, so we've covered some pretty impressive indoor hiding places. What about outdoor options?
Well, if you're looking for something long-term and secure, the book recommends burying a large diameter plastic pipe underground.
A buried pipe.
Yep, with a tight-fitting screw-on end cap to keep it watertight.
That's a good idea. But wouldn't it be difficult to find again once it's buried?
Well, you have to make sure you mark the location carefully.
Right. And what about metal detectors? Couldn't those be used to find it?
Yeah, that's a good point. The book actually suggests wrapping any metallic items you're hiding in aluminum foil to throw off metal detectors.
Interesting. So it's like a countermeasure against modern technology.
Exactly. Now, another approach the book mentions is hiding things in plain sight.
Hiding in plain sight. How do you do that?
Well, one way is to install fake electrical outlets.
Fake outlets.
Yeah, like a dummy socket or a custom-built wall safe that's disguised as an outlet.
So it looks like a normal part of the wall.
Exactly. And because everyone's so used to seeing electrical outlets, no one would think twice about it.
Clever. Okay. What else?
Well, the book also talks about using plumbing in unconventional ways.
Plumbing.
Yeah, things like toilet down pipes or even roof guttering.
And how do you use those for hiding things?
You can remove sections of the pipe and insert concealed containers.
Wow, that's pretty sneaky. But I imagine it would require some plumbing skills.
Yeah, definitely not for the faint of heart.
Okay, so we've got fake outlets and secret plumbing. What else is there?
Well, refrigerators and freezers come up again in this section.
Really? What can you do with those?
Apparently, the inside plastic panel is often attached with easily removable screws or rivets.
So you can take it off.
Yep. And then you have access to the insulation space, which can be used for hiding things.
Huh, never thought of that. And what about those coat or hat hanging units that are sometimes fixed to internal walls?
Those can be used too. You can remove them to access the space between the plasterboard and the outer wall.
So you're basically creating a hidden compartment behind the unit.
Exactly. Now, floors and ceilings also get a more elaborate treatment in this section.
Oh, how so?
Well, for floors, the book describes creating concealed compartments in solid top boxes that are buried under the flooring.
Buried boxes.
Yeah, and you access them by lifting a specific floorboard.
Sounds complicated.
It can be, especially with tongue and groove flooring, which requires careful removal starting from the outer edge.
Right. What about ceilings?
For ceilings, you can use false ceilings to hide things.
False ceilings.
Yeah, those ceilings that are constructed with lath strips and various paneling materials.
Okay.
You can hide items above the accessible panels, often near lighting fixtures.
So it's like a secret attic space?
Exactly. Now, the book even considers temporary hiding places for when you're away from home.
Temporary hides.
Yeah, like if you're staying in a hotel or at a friend's house.
Interesting. What kind of places does it suggest?
Well, one rather unusual idea is to use the Postal Service.
The Postal Service. How do you use that for hiding things?
You can mail items to yourself at a safe address and then retrieve them later.
That's pretty clever. But it seems a bit risky.
Yeah, it's definitely not a foolproof method. Another temporary measure is to drop items into a mailbox overnight when there isn't an immediate collection.
Again, not the most secure option.
Right. And for a truly resourceful approach, the book describes hollowing out the base of a large tree.
Hollowing out a tree, how do you do that?
You make a cut near ground level, insert a pipe, create a cavity in the remaining base, secure your items, and then replant the removed section with some surrounding debris for camouflage.
Wow, that's some serious dedication.
It is. And finally, in this section, the book touches on the concept of double bluffs.
Double bluffs, what are those?
It's basically the idea of hiding people in seemingly obvious locations.
Really? Like how?
Well, the book gives an example of someone hiding in plain sight in their own home, despite the police searching for them.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it also mentions adapting large fitted bedroom closets with cunningly altered drawers or top units to conceal a person.
So you're making the hiding place look like it's just part of the furniture.
Exactly. And it even suggests modifying large rack music systems to hide someone behind a false front, even going as far as cutting down record albums for added disguise.
That's pretty amazing. Okay, so we've gone from hiding small objects in furniture to concealing people in closets and behind record collections.
Right. And now the book takes it to a whole new level. It delves into creating actual secret safe spaces for personnel.
Secret safe spaces. You mean like hidden rooms?
Exactly. Spaces specifically designed to conceal individuals.
Wow, this is getting serious.
It is. So the book starts off with the concept of small hidden rooms, maybe around 5 by 2 feet in size, built within an existing space.
And how do you hide a whole room?
Well, you disguise it as a regular wall, ensuring there are no telltale signs, like electrical outlets or windows.
So it just blends in seamlessly.
Yeah, exactly. And the book even describes a really ingenious access point, using a section of spongy foam rubber fitted into a wallboard frame.
Foam rubber. How does that work?
It's secured with screws that compress the rubber for a tight fit, and you can actually operate it from the inside without leaving any visible marks.
Wow, that's pretty clever.
And to further enhance the concealment, the book recommends adding insulation within the walls to dampen any sound.
So it's like a soundproof bunker.
Pretty much.
Uh,
Now, another approach for concealing larger spaces is underfloor hides.
Underfloor hides, you mean like trapdoors?
Exactly. You create a trapdoor in the floor and then conceal it with floor coverings like tiles or carpet.
And what's underneath the trapdoor?
A hidden room, of course.
Of course. So you're basically creating a secret basement.
Yeah, and the book stresses the importance of camouflaging the trapdoor really well.
Right, because if it's obvious, then the whole thing is blown.
Exactly. Now, disguised doors are another technique mentioned in the book.
Disguise doors.
Yeah, you basically conceal a doorway by covering it with plasterboard and insulation, maybe even hiding it behind a shelf unit that's attached with magnets.
So it looks like a solid wall.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And the shelf unit can either swing open or be lifted away to reveal the door.
that's pretty cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got hidden rooms, trapdoors, and disguise doors. What else is there?
Well, the book also gets into underground shelters.
Underground shelters, you mean like bunkers?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, yeah.
The book describes how to construct simple underground hides by digging a pit, lining it with rocks, and cement, building a framework of 2x4s and plywood for the walls and roof, and then pouring more cement over the top.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
It is. And the book emphasizes the importance of drainage to prevent the shelter from flooding.
Makes sense. So how do you conceal the entrance to the shelter?
Well, you can camouflage it with turf or incorporate it into a patio design.
Clever. And what about ventilation? Don't you need air down there?
Yeah, the book mentions that you need to install some kind of ventilation system.
Right. Okay, what else does the book say about these underground shelters?
Well, it gets pretty detailed. It even suggests using air beds as temporary molds for casting concrete roofs.
Air beds, really?
Yep, and large truck tire inner tubes to form the basis of connecting tunnels.
That's pretty ingenious.
It is. And for a more aesthetically pleasing entrance, the book even mentions using an ornamental pool to conceal the opening.
An ornamental pool, wow. That's thinking outside the box.
Or you could go for a more basic approach and create a simple dugout with corrugated iron sheets attached to fence posts and covered with the turf roof.
So it looks like a small hill.
Exactly. And for a more discreet entrance, you could bury a pipe with a stop plate and then use a manhole cover disguised with soil and a plant pot.
So it just looks like a normal part of the garden.
Exactly. Now, the final technique in this section is particularly fascinating.
Oh, what's that?
Two-way mirrors.
Two-way mirrors. You mean like those mirrors they use in interrogation rooms?
Exactly. The book describes how to create a hidden room behind a two-way mirror.
So you can observe people without them knowing.
Exactly. Or
Oh,
use it as a secret space.
wow, that's pretty cool. But aren't two-way mirrors expensive?
They can be. But the book actually provides instructions on how to chemically treat ordinary window glass to create a two-way mirror.
Really? How do you do that?
It involves using silver nitrate and other chemicals,
Huh?
but the book stresses the importance of safety precautions.
Right, because you're dealing with potentially dangerous substances.
Exactly. And it also describes various methods for fixing the mirror to allow access to the space behind.
Like what?
Things like Velcro magnetic strips and spring-loaded plungers.
So you can make the mirror removable.
Exactly. All right, so we've covered some pretty mind-blowing stuff in this section. What else does the book have to offer?
Well, it also includes a section on away-from-home hides, which are basically temporary concealment options for when you're not at your primary residence.
Oh, that's interesting. Like what?
Well, the bathroom seems to be a popular choice.
The bathroom. Why the bathroom?
Because there are a lot of potential hiding places in there.
Like what?
Well, behind the paneling around bathtubs or sinks, which is often designed for easy removal,
Okay.
and toilet cisterns, if they're not sealed units, can also be used.
I guess that makes sense. And what about those tubular shower curtain tracks with the removable end plugs?
Those can be used too. You can stash small items inside the track.
Clever. Okay, what about hotel bathrooms?
Well, hotel bathrooms often have mirrors mounted with plastic screw head covers and shoulders.
Yeah, you can remove those.
Yep, you can lever them off to access the wall cavity.
Interesting. And what about bathroom cabinets?
Those are usually attached with a simple bracket so you can just lift them off the wall.
Makes sense. And for a really quick and easy hide, you can always use large toiletry jars.
Just make sure they're empty first.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the bathroom covered. What about other parts of a hotel room or a friend's house?
Well, beds offer a few options.
Business beds.
Yeah, you can hide things under the bedding, of course.
Right.
But you can also utilize the space between the bottom frame and the outer layer of material in divan-style beds.
Oh, yeah. And what about those divan beds that have drawers?
You can put things behind the drawers.
Sneaky. Now, in a real emergency, the book even mentions using elevator ceilings
Elevator ceilings. How do you get up there?
through the escape hatch.
Wow, that sounds pretty desperate.
It is definitely a last resort.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of specific hiding places. Now, does the book offer any general advice on concealment?
It does. The last section is called Hints and Tips, and it provides some overarching principles for successful hiding.
Oh, this sounds useful.
It is. So one of the first things the book emphasizes is that thieves and other searchers are often in a hurry.
So they might not look everywhere.
Exactly. So obvious and easily accessible places are often overlooked.
Interesting. So sometimes the best hiding place is the one that's right under your nose.
Exactly.
Mm,
The book also mentions the use of decoys.
decoys.
Yeah, like leaving a small amount of cash or some fake jewelry in an obvious spot to distract the searcher.
So they think they've found what they're looking for and move on.
Exactly. Now, one of the most interesting points the book makes is about blind spots.
Blind spots, you mean in our vision?
Yep. Apparently, everyone has a blind spot in their vision.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the book actually provides instructions on how to find your own blind spot.
Wow, that's pretty cool. But how does that relate to hiding things?
Well, the book suggests that you can exploit your blind spot to camouflage things.
I'm not sure I understand.
Basically, if you place something in your blind spot, you won't be able to see it.
Right.
But someone else who's looking from a different angle might not notice it either because their attention is focused elsewhere.
I see. So it's like a visual trick.
Exactly. Now, another important point the book makes is about normalcy.
Normalcy.
Yeah, the idea that the most effective hiding places are often those that blend in with their surroundings.
So don't make it obvious that you're hiding something.
Exactly. The book gives the example of a pot of stew simmering on the stove.
Okay.
It's less suspicious than a meticulously sealed container.
Right, because everyone has a pot of stew on the stove at some point.
Exactly. It's an everyday item that doesn't draw attention to itself.
Makes sense. Now, what about if you're actually being searched? Does the book offer any advice on how to act?
It does. It recommends employing double bluffs,
Double bluffs? Like what?
like offering assistance to the searcher and giving explanations for things.
So you're creating a sense of openness and cooperation.
Exactly. It throws the searcher off guard and makes them less suspicious.
Clever. But what should you avoid doing?
The book warns against any telltale physical reactions, like excessive sweating or nervous chatter.
Because that could give away your hiding place.
Exactly. It's all about staying calm and composed.
Right. Now, what about the actual camouflage of hiding places? Does the book offer any advice on that?
It does. It suggests avoiding single repetitive patterns that draw the eye.
And instead using visually complex patterns that break up the shape of the object.
Exactly. The book gives the example of disruptive pattern material, or DPM, which is used by the British Army. Yeah, it's a camouflage pattern that's designed to blend in with a variety of environments.
Interesting. So it's all about making the object less visible.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And the book also explores the psychology of camouflage.
the psychology of camouflage.
Yeah, it points out that hiding places that look innocent and even insecure can be surprisingly effective
Why is that?
because they don't suggest any deliberate concealment
Ah, I see. It's like reverse psychology.
in a way.
And finally, the book offers some practical considerations for choosing a hiding place.
Like what?
Well, it suggests thinking about the absolute last place someone would logically look,
Okay.
and also considering whether the hiding place is too obvious, too dirty, or too smelly.
Right, because all of those things could draw attention to it.
Exactly. It's all about putting yourself in the mindset of the searcher.
So as we've seen, this book is full of fascinating insights and techniques for hiding things.
It is, and it's really made me think about all the different ways we can use concealment in our lives. Yeah, it's not just about hiding valuables or keeping secrets. It's about creativity, problem solving, and even understanding human psychology.
Exactly. So for our listeners out there, we encourage you to take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed today
Think about which techniques you found most surprising or memorable.
and consider how the principles of concealment might apply to other areas of your life
Maybe you can use them to improve your home security.
or protect your privacy.
Or even just come up with creative solutions to everyday problems.
The possibilities are endless. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of hiding anything.
And remember, stay hidden.
But not too hidden? We want you to come back for our next episode.
Exactly. See you next time.
Bye.